Now, I have heard Peter refer to BrainDo as being platform agnostic, and I really like that terminology. Can you speak more to that and how you might recommend different platforms to different clients?
Being platform agnostic means that we work within any type of analytics platform and have the expertise within them. So that means we are not just a Google shop or not just an Adobe shop. We have skill sets in all of those platforms.
What are some others other than, I only know Google and Adobe? Are there others?
There's Mixpanel, there's, and there's these like product analytics tools like Amplitude and voice of customer things like Pendo. Like there's a lot of different tools in the stack that you would use, survey tools. There's all kinds of different tools that you would use to kind of like improve the customer experience or get some tracking done. There's even like operational ones. So it goes on and on. Okay. I think from our perspective, it's almost like we don't care what the tool is. Like we'll look at its capabilities. We'll tell you what it can and can't do. We can implement the right outputs from it. We can orchestrate that piece. We can make the tools do the best they can do. And then, we can make recommendations if this tool isn't the right fit for that situation with that company at that time.
Right. Sometimes the company will already have a specific platform, and we would have to, learn to work within it. So, expertise within any of those platforms is sort of a requirement here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when we're talking about A/B testing, there are A/B testing tools out there, but then, if a client didn't have anything and for whatever reason couldn't or didn't want to get anything, we can still run an A/B testing program. Like we can still figure out how to write the code to do the audience selection. We can still figure out how to send the data to their regular just clickstream analytics, their regular platform with the information about what test you're in or not in. And we can still do the math on the results to figure out like who the winner is. So from our perspective, when we say we're agnostic, we're like, you got a tool? Great. You don't have a tool? Great. Whatever your situation is, we're going to get the job done of, doing the analytics, setting up for analysis, setting up for whatever. If we'll help you get the bare minimum of data collection you need just to get the ball rolling, or we can make recommendations when you're ready to take on a platform. So it allows us to be flexible and focus more on like, can we put together a good program?
Yeah.
And less on like the specific nuances of a tool. Because sometimes these tools sometimes even like the company, you can get caught up in like one philosophy of how to do things and lose track of like the foundation, the principles behind it.
So, I imagine if people have historical data in one tool, analytics like suite, so to speak, they're pretty attached to that. But if you were like starting fresh and looking at like GA4 or Adobe Analytics, like are there very like obvious specific advantages to one over the other depending on what you're looking to do? Or is it really down in those nitty gritty details?
It changes.
Okay.
It depends.
Yeah, I think there are certain needs that a company is wanting, and some certain platforms offer the whole set or cloud of products that will work together seamlessly. There's other times where some platforms don't have everything, and that's where we need to try and recommend what the best direction is to take to get the right platform or to use for them for their best use case, I guess. Okay.
What would be an example of like a really strong reason why you might guide a client towards, let's say, Adobe Analytics?
Let's say they're using Adobe Experience Manager for their content management system.
Okay.
And, let's say that just the people that they hired, the people on the team that have to do the analysis, already know it.
Okay.
I'm like, well, that eliminates a big challenge, to adoption. is there's just a comfort level. And, you know, and sometimes it's just a matter of like, they came from another company and that's what that company is. And so we're kind of like, well, we could try to get you to learn the other one and translate it for you. But, you know, if that familiarity and your ability to use this like a power user is like a big card in favor of going in that direction. Cost could be another factor, but it's a complicated, you know, it's a complicated one.
Sure.
Again, some websites are low volume of people or low volume of activity and high revenue per person. And other ones are the opposite, where it's like, I need 1 billion people to make anything. So it really depends.
Yeah.
I think the expertise within the platform is very important. If, you know, that certain company has people that know how to use these platforms effectively, that's the easier recommendation to go. Or some of the platforms, you know, don't have that specific ability. Like, for instance, I guess, but Adobe is a little bit more in a technical sense, I guess.
Yeah.
I sort of want to retract that, but yeah.
Go ahead.
It's complicated.
Yeah, like, I don't want to say like Adobe is more geared for like larger volume enterprise companies, I guess, right? Google can sort of be that as well, but I think there is just more products that Adobe offers. So it's not just analytics. They have the campaign tool, they have Adobe Target. And those all are connected within one experience, like cloud application.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing because you're kind of sometimes talking about like the integrated suite. So both, you know, these tool sets have all their partners. You know, right now I'd say they're the main two that we come across. There is Mixpanel. There are some other, you know, again, these other tools that fall in, but from a marketing perspective, like if you're using different Adobe products, it's easier to use Adobe Analytics.
Yeah, sure.
If you're Google, same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like switching from one to the other might be a multi-tool conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Multi-tool strategy.
Sounds
That
very
makes
complicated,
sense.
actually.
Yeah. Like you're very entrenched. Once you've like made a decision, you just kind of keep. I don't want to have like the negative connotation of like digging a deeper hole, but like you are like that's when you get so far in, it's like hard to get out.
We do a lot of work, I think, to take the tracking side of it and make that agnostic. So like we kind of create our own version of a, you know, what they call a data layer, but we kind of take the collection principles and then we translate it into what tools we're sending it to. That means we can switch from one tool to the other, or in many companies, for whatever reason, they run both at the same time because half the users want to use the one tool set and half use the other. If the company's big enough and they have enough money, it sometimes makes sense.
Are there any major discrepancies between the two that might make it hard for them to like communicate to each other?
There are.
Okay.
How they calculate a session is one thing.
Okay.
You know, in the past, there were issues with character counts. I'd say that's still like a thing.
It's still an issue, right?
How many slots they have to fit information into can be different. And then, you know, there's this whole thing of, let's say you had a bug on your page and it caused it to just like hit your analytics tool over and over and over again, like 1 million times. Like you hit a button and then it's like a loop that just sends 1,000 messages. Like they have limits and things built in, and those limits are different. And in a long enough session or whatever, like this one hit a limit, but that one didn't. And then there's like plugins that block tracking tools and analytics tools, some of them more explicitly, some of them more, you know, subtly. So there's a lot of reasons why the numbers are going to be different.
Why would someone do the block plugin?
I would say when it comes to privacy, some people, you know, veer on the side of, if I don't know, then I just won't let it track. You know, I like tracking's bad unless I know what benefit I get for it. Right. So it's just like, if you think about that, there are things like that. There are people with conjecture and ideas about what, you know, that about what these tools do, and it's kind of like how many people answer a survey at the end of a customer experience. You know that they're asking you the survey because they want to make their experience better, but you don't necessarily want to give your time up.
Right.
Mhm.
If you have the choice to opt out and
Yeah.
like have to be, and I mean, like this when we're talking about a lot of privacy tools, we're talking about, I mean, a variety of things, but we saw like the massive rise of like VPNs, like that's part of it. I mean, like, and like all the YouTubers with their like massive YouTube analytics that they use to like support their channel and curate their content, or then like buy a VPN so people can track you. And I always think that's funny.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Irony.
Like, don't you want to know where your people are actually coming from?
Right. Don't you, isn't your referral traffic for your audience important?
Right. It's part of the future. I mean, they're going to keep coming up with new ways. You know, once someone does something nefarious, they're going to come up with new ways to protect people from that.
And then they'll come up with new ways to try to scam around that. So.
Yeah. I mean, if I were to say, like, without getting too deep into it, like, first party data collection is probably going to be more the future, where we're not using third party tools. We're just sending information directly to our own websites so that it's not commingled. There's not a single place to go and track across websites. You know, there's going to be more of that when it comes to improving your website or app as a product. So I think that's going to play a big role in the future.
And do you think that's right, like mostly attributed to what we were talking about with the waves in privacy being more like regulated and cracking down on that?
Yeah, there's a loss of traffic, that we'll see in a client, right? Just because, people are blocking and, they don't want to have their information shared. So, a way around that is, doing more first-party data collection where, those rules don't, affect that, right? You still want to collect all that the same information, but it's just not sending to a third party.